I'm Andrew, and welcome back to Community Design Review, where we take a look at some of this week's best designs from the Custom Magic subreddit as voted on by you, the community. Our meme card this week is Entropical Island. It's a land with tap, add green or blue at random. This is an interesting take on dual lands. As many have pointed out in the comment thread, this doesn't really work in the rules as is, because you're allowed to undo mana abilities that don't affect the game's state, which would allow you to keep tapping until you get the mana you want. Still, there have been several suggestions to make the card playable, and although I don't think the game actually needs or wants 10 of these lands, it is a fun design. Also, the name is quite clever. Our first shoutout is Marsh Stalker. I'm sorry, Jason. I know this brings up some bad memories, but I didn't name it. It costs 2 black-green for a 2/2 creature, skeleton warrior with vigilance, and if Marsh Stalker would be destroyed while it's untapped, instead tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on it. This is a unique design. It's a weak body, but it's hard to kill and keeps getting bigger. Kind of. As commenter Obvious Swimmer points out, this ability doesn't remove damage, so if Marsh Stalker takes 3 or more damage, it will tap and get a +1/+1 counter, then still have lethal damage marked on it, so it will die because it is already tapped. This may be intentional. You would have to work around the restriction and try to get it to take exactly 2 damage, then exactly 3, etc. But that does feel like a lot of work for a very slow payoff. I would make it remove damage, but once you do, I really like this design. Our second shoutout is Bruvax Filibuster. It costs 2 blue for a sorcery that says, take an extra turn after this one. Whenever you aren't speaking during that turn, end the turn. This is the kind of unset nonsense that I'm here for. You get a cheap extra turn spell at the cost of having to filibuster your way through that entire turn, which could be as simple as commenting that you untap, draw a card, cast a spell, and pass, but it could get more complicated if you want to throw attacking into the mix, which is of course the best way to use an extra turn spell, which is interesting because blue is the color that is least likely to focus on attacking, but it's the only color that gets its own extra turn spells, which means that if you want to make the most use of it, you need to pair it with another color, which is actually elegant design if you think about it, but now I'm remembering just how good extra turn spells pair with planeswalkers, which is definitely something that blue likes to use, so maybe you don't need creatures after all. Anyhow, I think this is a hilarious design and would be really difficult for players who have to play every game like it's a chess match. Moving on to the top 5 black bordered cards for this week, at number 5 we have Sir Jean Eric. This bland character is a 4/4 legendary creature, human knight for
White.
With vanilla creatures you control get +2/+2, creatures with no abilities are vanilla creatures, and tap. Until end of turn, each other creature loses all abilities. Okay, so this does a bit to push the vanilla creatures theme introduced by Moragondra Petroglyphs. I have tried this theme a couple of times, and it's difficult, because in order to make it work, you both need vanilla creatures, and cards like this, often creatures, that have abilities that help out your vanilla creatures. So it's a bit of a conflict. Now that wouldn't be so bad, but you can't make creatures that say vanilla creatures you control have lifelink. While I would love to give my Colossipede lifelink, once I do, it's no longer a vanilla creature, so it loses lifelink. So now it's a vanilla creature, so it gains lifelink. So it's no longer, this isn't insurmountable, but it does require some workarounds. Sir Jean Eric doesn't even have that problem because it's just buffing power and toughness, but I thought it worth mentioning. Now, being able to turn other creatures into vanillas is interesting. It is sort of in White's color pie, but it's not very common, and you can't usually make all creatures lose abilities. Also, I feel like this is either a cop-out or a clever way of making the first ability more relevant, and I'm not sure which. I guess there's still payoff for playing actual vanillas in your deck. I mean, turn 1 Isamaru, turn 2 Armored Warhorse, turn 3 this guy is a sweet curve, so I guess I'm fine with it. The only part then that I find questionable is keywording the term vanilla. I don't hate it, but I'm also just not sure it's necessary. Moving on to number 4, we have Revoke Identity. It costs white for an instant that says, turn target creature face down. Now, to review, turning a creature face down makes it a colorless 2/2 creature with no abilities. You can't turn a face down creature face up again unless it has morph or megamorph, though you can still gaze longingly at the creature that your 2/2 used to be, reminiscing about better days and thinking, Entropy takes us all in the end. Flavorfully, this card is a home run. White is the color where you're most likely to lose your identity, because white cares more about society as a whole than individuals. It also seems likely to use identity erasure as a punishment for a crime, perhaps seeing it as more merciful than execution. Mechanically, this card is questionable. White can remove creatures, though this transmutation effect is seen more often in blue, but Screw it. Blue's trying to steal more pie, so let's fight fire with fire. Legitimately, I love this design, and I think it's a great place for white's removal to go. At number 3, we have Arynial Vault Sorcerer. It's a 3/4 legendary creature, Angel, for 3 white, with flying, and at the beginning of each of your main phases, if you control an artifact, add colorless. If you control an enchantment, add white. So, it's a ramp creature, but you have to jump through the hoops of controlling artifacts and or enchantments, which is something white cares about. Notably, this adds mana each main phase, for a maximum of 4 mana per turn, though you can't use all that mana on the same spell because it will empty from your mana pool between main phases. This could encourage playing a lot of smaller spells, though you could also just ignore one of the main phases and use this to ramp 2 mana instead. And that seems fine. To be honest, this card doesn't particularly excite me, but it does seem like solid white ramp, which I guess is good enough. Our number 2 this week is Unistorm. It's a 2/2 creature, elemental unicorn for 1 white, which has prowess, and Unistorm enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other spell cast this turn. It also has an adventure named Lightning Bridge, which is an instant for red that says, the next spell you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash. Okay, so the unicorn rewards you for playing spells before or after it, and it comes with its own spell, which would effectively let you play Unistorm as a 3/3 with flash, and of course prowess. These two effects work together nicely and are well designed. My only problem with this card is the color choices. Blue can give sorceries flash, and green and white can give creatures flash, but we've never seen red do either. To give flash to any spell might require 2 colors. Maybe blue-white, maybe red-green, but I don't think mono-red is appropriate. And for the body, white does get prowess, but less than blue or red, and to care about how many spells have been cast this turn? Well, we've seen this effect before in red, and white is the color with the least storm. So, while I'm not saying it's wrong to make the creature white, I think red is much more likely. And finally, coming in at number 1 this week, we have Shielded by the Sun. It costs 2 white for an enchantment that says, whenever a creature attacks you, it becomes exerted. As a reminder, an exerted creature will not untap during its controller's next untap step. So that makes this a hate enchantment that makes you harder to attack. Think Ghostly Prison, but attacking costs time instead of mana. I like this a lot. It's simple, it's effective, and it's mostly in white's color pie. While freezing creatures is more blue, white does it occasionally. So that brings us to, let's see, white bend, white bend, white bend, white bend, white bend. Oh my god! I need 10 cc's of pie break stat. Much better. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought about these cards. We'll be back next Tuesday with another community design review.